Hello, it's Jackie Barry here, author of the new book of Icebreakers and Energizers for Speakers and Trainers, Experiential Speaking. Now, there are many Stuart Harrises in the world, but there is only one, the Stuart Harris. And here he is today. He is a speaker, trainer, MC and consultant that works with businesses, helping them to attract, develop and retain clients. We're both big fans of using audience participation activities and comedy in our talks and training sessions. So tell me a bit about the ones that you use and how they work for you. What are your favorite activities?
Oh, I'm not a big fan of role play, especially when you bring two volunteers / victims to the front of the room and then everybody sits and watches them. The feedback, surprisingly, is usually very good about these role plays, but it's never by the people doing them. It's always good feedback from people who watch other people and they learn from that. But what I do try and do is use energizers not just at the start of the day, the welcome into the room, let's get to know each other, but throughout the day as well. And how can they apply that back to the workplace? When I was at school, I probably didn't do as well as I could do because I constantly asked teachers, why do I need to learn trigonometry? It's on the syllabus, you just need to learn it. Now, if they had actually said, well, later on in life, when you need to do X, Y, Z, this is when you would use this. So if they gave me application, it would have worked. They never did. I have never, since leaving school, measured the length of a hippopotamus. I don't know what the triangles are. There wasn't application. So every time I introduce an energizer or an icebreaker or a getting to know you or an exercise, whatever it might be, there's always a point. And I always ask the question, what did you get from there? More importantly, what are you taking back to the workplace from that exercise, that energy? What I do try and do is align the icebreaker to the course. It's not just a matter of having a favourite icebreaker and somehow try and crowbar that into the session. So I've got a number of icebreakers and energizers and games, and the feedback back from it is just amazing. Especially if you're doing. I do a lot of work for corporate. And some large contact centres, some financial services, some mobile telecoms, and often I'll run courses that internal trainers also run. And on more than one occasion, I've had people come up to me saying, I did a piece for one of the big banks in Scotland, and had two delegates come up to me at the end of the day and said, we're having an argument about you. And I said, what's the argument? And he said, about whether you're an internal trainer or whether you're an external trainer. I said, well, what do you think I am? Well, she thinks you're internal, I think you're external. And I said to the internal, why do you think I'm internal? I said, because you just know too much. You get loads of anecdotes and analogies. You get lots of stories when you went into our bank and all that. I said, you're knee deep in our business. You know what's going on. And I said to the other one, and why do you think I'm an external trainer? She said, because none of our internal trainers are this fun. She said, it's been great. It's energy. Everybody's been totally engaged, enthusiastic about the day. The feedback has been great. I've also had people coming up saying, it's nice to see a trainer with a bit of personality. Because I love this job. I think this is the best job in the world. And I want people to go away from that going, that was the best course that I've been on. That's my legacy. I give that to the world.
I had some lovely feedback from a client just this month saying, and it's the second time they've had me round to talk at all their regional meetings because they wanted an advanced version of what they got last year. And they've all written back to say how much the attendees really enjoyed the engagement, really enjoyed the interaction. And I know that all they get the rest of the day is bullet point slide after bullet point slide after bullet point slide. And I have them doing quizzes and running about and playing pass the parcel and having games and fun and laughter. But of course, with a point. So they're still getting the message across,
in
a really engaging way. On the subject of humour, I know that there's something else you and I both have in common, because on your website, you talk about your stand-up comedy and how you integrate those skills.
I've always loved stand-up, whether it's on the telly, I love that. But living, I don't know whether you've picked this up, but I'm Scottish, and and I'm only an hour away from Edinburgh. So during August, I really try and cut down my workload. You know, a lot of people say, you know, January is the quiet time, so they take all January off. I really try and do that with August, and go through to Edinburgh, stay, spend time with family, because accommodation costs a fortune. But I'll go out and I'll try and see as much varied comedy as I can. So I love observing it, I love watching it, I love learning from it. And I often think, what could I take from that to use in what I do? But I've also done, like yourself, I've also done a couple of comedy workshops, and I was just blown away by it. Did it make me a better comedian? I don't know, but I came away from that, and obviously with the two of us in the PSA, woohoo! I put a message on the Facebook page going, guys, if you get a chance, go do a comedy workshop, because there are so many transferable skills. When you turn up, it's not a matter of doing a comedy routine you saw on Facebook or Dave Comedy Channel. You've got to come up with brand new material, because everybody's seen the stuff that's out there. So you've got to come up with a blank sheet of paper and write new material. So that really gets you going. But you then got to edit it, then edit it, then edit it, and cut it right down to, where am I getting the laughs here? And I remember seeing Jimmy Carr saying, try and use as few words as possible when you're delivering a joke, because you'll be making it more punchy. So there's stagecraft, there's audience participation, there's engagement before, engagement afterwards. And I think there's so many learnings from doing stand-up comedy. And it pushes you outside your comfort zone. And I think where you see, and I know a number of other comedians and a number of friends that go, I've no idea how you do that. Stand up and talk in front of people. And I've said, but that's what I do for a living. That's the easy bit. You know, stand in front of I mean, you don't normally stand up in front of 150 boozed up people that, you know, where you're coming on at 11 o'clock at night. But it's just a great way to engage with people, and I suggest it to every single trainer and speaker that I know. Do a comedy work, even if you don't tread the boards, which you have, I know. But even if you don't tread the boards, go and learn, and there's so much to learn from it. So I definitely recommend it.
And that reminds me of a story that I was asked to MC a charity dance show, and MCing is not a big part of what I do. And I knew there would be 450 people in the audience. I knew there were 150 performers, many of them children, and some of those autistic. I also knew that the organizer had never put on such an event before, and anything could go wrong. So I had initially prepared all my introductions. Here was the brief. You're going to introduce 20 performances, 30 seconds each, and be funny. So that was a tough brief to start with. I thought, I'm going to be out front with a microphone in the spotlight, being recorded, what's more, for DVDs to sell in aid of the charity.
Yeah.
Feeling that I have to hold this whole event together. And then one of my dance teachers actually said to me, well, treat it like an improv event. And suddenly, instead of being scared of things going wrong, I was so ready for things to go wrong. I was out front, but I was waiting for the audience to give me something I could bounce off, or something to happen on stage behind me I could comment on. And I was so in the moment and so in the zone. I'm not going to say that I would win awards for my emceeing, but I did feel these huge waves of warmth from the audience, because they knew I was on it. It didn't matter. A few things happened. I was able to address them there and then. And I knew that they felt more comfortable because of that. And I could never have done it without comedy and improv training. It's just boosted that spontaneity bit of my brain.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned there about preparedness. I think I remember going for a job interview back in the day when I worked for the Man, and I thought, right, okay, fine. If I was to interview me, what would I do? And I thought, right, I'll throw some spanners in the works. And the instruction was, right, email your presentation through to us. And I thought, right, okay, fine, I've emailed it. What if I turn up and they say, we didn't get your email? What am I going to do then? And I go, I know what I'll do. And this will age me and age the story. And I go, I know what I've got. I've got a floppy disk. I'll put it on a floppy disk so they can put it in. But then what if they turn around and say, no, we can't put external floppy disks into our computers? What will I do then? Acetates. So I had to handwrite acetates from my marker pens. And then what if the light bulb doesn't, what if, and I turned up, and as soon as I walked in the door, the guy went, okay, fine, your slides are ready. We've got them up on the screen whenever you're, and I thought, but the fact that I was ready for it, and I always try and think about that, just be ready. And I think the same goes for running workshops, stand-up comedy. You know, what happens if you get heckled? No, unless I'm rubbish, you know, there's a chance that could happen. But what am I going to get heckled about? Being Scottish, being bald, being overweight. I can prepare responses to that so that it doesn't throw me. And I think good trainers and good facilitators and good speakers anticipate what could happen. What if something goes wrong? What am I going to do? And I think it's the same when running an exercise, because you might go, what if I go into a room and nobody likes each other, nobody's going to engage, and I've got to crowbar fun into the day? And somebody sits there and goes, I don't want to be here. Why are you here? Because my boss told me I had to do.
I got the chance to speak at PSA South Africa when they had their conference in Cape Town, and
Nice.
Alan Stevens had prepared a Skype interview session with speakers from other GSF associations around the world. And because there was a concern about the quality of the Wi-Fi at this Cape Town hotel, I didn't know until afterwards the definition of a really professional speaker, because it all worked, it was fine.
Yep.
Subsequently found he had pre-recorded an interview with each of those separate people just in case the Wi-Fi went down.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
A lot of work. So how do you get your audience into the mindset where they're ready to play? What works and what doesn't work when warming them up for a bit of fun?
I always, as long as I can, because a number of businesses go, no, you don't contact our guys before the session. But if I can, I contact them. It's a bit of me. And here's a couple of things. You don't need to do this, but this might help your thinking before. So there might be a pre-work playbook, you know, just some of the topics we're going to talk about, some resources, some links that they could look at. But they begin to get my personality just even in that email. Because well, you're the copywriter, but I just write as me. I don't do what my mum used to do when she was on the phone. My mum used to, when she was on the phone, she'd have a phone voice depending who she talked to. And I'm me. Well, you've known me, what, 7, 8 years. You know, I am what I am. There's certainly no airs and grace. So I send an email out to them. So as soon as they walk in the door, they know who I am. They know a bit about me. I don't know much about them. I tend not to know what positions they hold within the organisation. But from the off, I'm introducing them to other people, so people are getting to know each other. And then I tend to move tables out of the way. So we'll sit in a horseshoes so that people are facing each other. It's much more engaging. And where you normally have the introductions, what's your name and where do you come from and what challenge do you face related to whatever the topic is, people normally go start at person 1 and finish at person 15, and they go round the loop, and it's this creep of death. I don't do that. I tend to start off by saying, okay, fine, who's got the lowest house number? And nobody expects that. And somebody go, well, I'm 2. Right, is any low? Right, okay, fine, and I'll throw one of these things at them. A cush ball. God love them. And I'll throw that at them. Okay, fine, up you get, tell us a bit about yourself. And they'll go up, and okay, fine, you choose who's next. And it's this sort of zigzag, and it keeps everybody totally engaged, because the last thing, person number 15 has fallen asleep by the time he's got to person 7 on the old-fashioned way. But this keeps everybody totally alert. There's a bit of fun in it. There's a bit of engagement in it. And from the very start of the day, before we even start talking, and here's the agenda, and this is what we're going to talk about today, here's the overview, everybody's immediately engaged with each other. And I constantly move people around in different groups. It's not a matter of, okay, fine, turn to your partner and ask them what they think. I hate that. I get people standing up and moving around, and they'll stand in 2s or 3s and they'll share the top tips.
Yeah, it wakes them up and they pay attention, and they think this is going to be different, and they can't hide behind their phone. They can't hide behind their tablet. They've got to watch and listen, and that's the first step to learning.
As you mentioned too earlier on, I do a lot of stuff in leadership, but a lot of customer service and customer retention stuff. And people face challenges, and a lot of people are moving into a digital world. They're using digital tools to communicate with customers, whatever that might well be. And one of the activities I use at the start, I'll put post-it notes, and this is something I've actually just started doing this year. But I've got some post-it notes here, but I'll put a couple of post-it notes on each person's desk. But I will, every third one gets a blue post-it note. Every second one, I don't know if you can see that, and it's coming up, an orange one, and there's a yellow one or a green one. So that when I go, and I'll start them off, and I've drawn a terrible love heart, and it's got my favourite app. So I get them talking about their favourite app on their phone, first of all. And then who they are, what they do, what digital tools they're currently using as well. And they put it on the post-it note, they get a big marker pen, they draw the logo of their favourite app. So it might be a bird for Twitter or whatever it might well be. And I'll just have them they'll just scatter them over the board. But throughout the day, what that then allows me to do, go, okay, fine, I want to work people, and again, depending on the numbers that you've got, okay, fine, the 3 people that went for yellow, working in exercise, the people that worked in blue, or it just gets them going and working in different groups. And it just really strikes a chord. They're completely engaged throughout the day.
One of the things I think is magical about that is that, again, it's low tech. It's a fuzzy ball, or it's a piece of paper, or it's a post-it note. And pretty much all the activities that I use equally are not dependent on technology. They're really low tech. And because of that, they're more tactile somehow. They're more psychologically, people have to pick them up with their hands.
Yes, yeah.
Touch and
well, I love that exercise that you do. And I've seen you doing this in workshops, like where you get people to, write their top tip from the day, and then they throw it over their shoulder, and somebody else is picking up somebody else's top tip. I love that. That's a great exercise.
Yeah, the snowball fight that can be adapted so many ways.
Yes, yeah.
So you and I have both been in very many audiences as well as on very many stages. When you've been in an audience, can you think of an activity you had to participate in, either one that went really, really well and it landed and it taught you the message, or something that really didn't work for you, and why?
I'll start with the second one first. If I'm in a workshop, absolutely fine, get totally involved, engaged, all this sort of stuff, and the exercises and activities. Totally. What I don't like, if I'm actually at a conference and the speaker says, turn to your partner and share your experience. Because more often than not, when I've been sitting in the audience, the mumble round about me is just people saying, I hate doing this thing. And they don't get anything. So you just wasted 5 minutes of quality material. So I would say if somebody's doing a 45-minute keynote, give them 45 minutes of your best stuff, not 35 minutes of your stuff and 10 minutes of wasted time. What's really worked, I was observing another trainer actually delivering a workshop, and he stood up and he got people to do the flip chart. Okay, fine, give us your top tips on whatever it was, can't remember what it was. Give us your top tips on what it is. And then they had a bit of an argument about who was going to present back. And it was like death warmed up. And I had a bit of a chat with him, and I gave him some suggestions. And when we came back in the afternoon, he completely changed what he was doing, following my instructions or suggestions. And he came back and he had 3 flip charts up. I think he had dropped 1 flip chart and 1 against the window and 1 against the door. And whatever it was like the benefits of doing X, the consequences of not doing X, and another one on behaviours and traits of the person who successfully does X, whatever it is. And he got them to do that. And then after about 5 minutes, he said, okay, fine. And I always give a rundown as well. If I'm doing a session, I always go, right, guys, you got 2 minutes to go. And nobody ever goes, thanks very much for the warning, Stuart, thanks for the heads up. But it sinks into the back of their mind. So when we come to wrap up, they're ready to go. And he then went, okay, fine, everybody move clockwise so that you move on to the next flip chart with your coloured pen so we can see the difference. And they added to the flip chart. Then they moved round again. And I've taken, something that I've suggested, but I've taken that to the next stage, so that one person from each group goes clockwise and one person goes anti-clockwise, and they've got to add on, explain the contribution from their group, just in case there's any confusion. And I'll leave them there and tell the guys to take photographs up. So the best exercise that I've seen often comes around the flip chart. But as you say, it's the simple things that have the biggest impact.
Yeah, pen and paper. There's something, it makes your brain think differently, doesn't it?
Yeah, and one of the things that I've done, and you're more than welcome to take it as well as anybody else, but one thing is when they get to their flip chart, I always set a rule. Rule number one, well, I've got a couple of rules. Rule number one, before you throw the cush ball, make sure you look at the person, make sure they're expecting it. That's rule number one. Rule number two, whoever contributes the least presents back on behalf of the group. And you'll be amazed at how quickly people get engaged, rather than going, I'm just going to stand here, because Doris sounds as if she knows what she's talking about. Everybody immediately gets involved. And it's just a buzz. And it's you start the morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knows each other. They're all a bit shy. And by the end of the day, they're buzzing. And it's hard to shut them up, because they're just so high.
Where do you get your ideas from?
I've been in customer services and hotel management way back before colour was invented, and that was in hotel management, customer service. That was my big focus. Then I got into sales. I worked for Coca-Cola for 7 years, and that's a great learning experience, a fantastic experience there. And I love watching other people. I know this might surprise you, but I'm over 40 now. And I'm still learning. I still go into webinars. I still watch videos. I still read. I'm constantly reading about, and top tips. And you see the bookcase there. And I know there's the old corny gag. It's not self-development, it's shelf development. That's the old one. But out of all of those books, I don't know if there's a book that I've read all the way through. Because if I'm working on something, I go, I need some ideas, jump onto Amazon, or if I can find a bookshop, I'll rather do that. And I'll just cherry pick a couple of chapters, some 3 things. So I don't need to learn, 300 pages of content. I just need to learn the stuff that's relevant to me. And I'm constantly learning. And I'm constantly looking, going back to my school days, I'm still constantly looking for application. When would I use that? Why would I use that? What's the point? And I still do that. And learn from you. Obviously, I've seen you many times in workshops and training sessions at PSA events and stuff like that. And you go away from that going, I'm having that.
Well,
I'm having that. I'll adapt it. I remember hearing, I think it was Will Kintish that said it once. And it was just a throwaway line. I thought, I'm having that. And he said, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from a lot of people, it's research. So I do a lot of research.
And this is something I say about copywriting. If you work for 2 clients in the same sector, you're working for competitors. But when you work for 3 clients in the same sector, you're a sector expert.
Sexpert?
No, that went wrong. I say that again. You're a sector specialist.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree, yeah.
If you were talking to somebody who does presentations but isn't used to using any kind of audience participation, what advice would you give them about giving it a try?
One thing that I've learned, and I still do a bit of stand-up comedy, not a lot, but I think if you suddenly go, I've never done that before, but I'm going to completely change my whole routine, I'm going to do a brand new set, a lot of it is not going to work. So what I would suggest is do testers. Just do a small, I'm going to try this at the start of the day. I'm going to start and try this after lunch. I'm going to try different things. I'm going to ask the group to come up with an exercise themselves. It's amazing how creative audiences can be. Okay, fine. If this is the challenge, how do you think you could solve this as well? And I'm a big believer. I remember seeing Jeremy Nicholas at a PSA event, and he talked about telegraph poles. I don't know if you heard them talk about this. And I had heard the same thing, a similar thing. similar concept years ago, and it's the way that I design my training. If you and here's one I prepared earlier.
Okay.
Can you see that? Is it a bit shiny?
I can
Okay. So ideally, what you want, if you say this is the start of the session, that's the end of the session. This is level of interest.
Yeah.
And ideally, you want people's level of interest to stay high all the way through. And you and I know that doesn't happen. So what often happens, you know where I'm going? Yep. So this is more for your viewers than for you, because I know you do exactly this. But if you don't shake things up and don't change things around, there's going to be a dip. People are interested at the beginning of things and at the end of things. If you think about that in movies or books or videos, whatever it might well be. So if you can break your session up so that you've got your introduction, oh, there's a bendy introduction, you've got your introductions, you've got an exercise, you've got some learning, you've got a break, you've got a suction, then what actually happens, there's still a dip, but it's minuscule. Now, Jeremy calls that telegraph pose, as in that's your telegraph pose that props up the level of interest. I call it bowing, not as an aeroplane, but bow, as in a bow and arrow. There's your bow, but ideally you want small, minute ones. And I think if you can use exercises and games and activities and reflection time and breaks and go out into the breakout area with a flip chart or post-it notes or whatever it is, and then come back in 5 minutes and feedback. I think if you can break your day up, people are going to be totally engaged in what you're doing throughout the whole day. So you can take Jeremy's version as telegraph pose or my version of bowing, and just try it and have a look, you know, and again, it's, you know, for people that are looking at this, have a look at any workshops that you run or any events that you speak at or anything that you do, and just go, would it pass that test? Because if it's longer than, I would say probably if it's longer than 15 minutes, it's too long. So break it into 5, 10, 15, 20-minute chunks, maybe at most.
That connects right back to the stand-up comedy thing, where we were saying on the training I did, you cut out all the details, so you end up with set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. And if your content doesn't fit one of those, you cut it.
Yeah, and Alan Stevens talks about when you're crafting a keynote, think about story, point, takeaway. Oh, and Sean Weaver, I've had a number of conversations with Alan and Sean will go, is that, well, the way he thinks about it is point, story, application or takeaway. And I think it's a bit of both. I think, you know, because people will see, oh, here's a story and there's the point. And I know I've watched Alan many times, I've watched Sean many times, and there's never it's always point, then story, then takeaway. Sometimes it's point, story, a takeaway, and sometimes it's point. You know what I'm saying? Mix it up a wee bit. Point, story, takeaway, story, point, takeaway.
And they are both great storytellers and
fantastic storytellers, yeah.
It's another way of engaging an audience, is because
Yeah.
they will remember the stories. They'll remember more than any dry theory will be an entertaining or interesting, informative story. Mixing it up, that's the answer.
That's it, yeah.
And that will reach more people more effectively. And on that subject, how do people reach you to find out?
Oh, nice. That was nice. That was good. You should think about writing.
I write when I talk, happily. So how can people reach you to find out more?
I searched high and low for stuartharris.com and stuartharris.co.uk. I didn't like .biz, and I thought, I'm the Stuart Harris. So when I do my online learning courses, it's the Stuart Harris online course. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, the Stuart Harris. So my website is thestuartharris.com, and that's STUART. So thestuartharris.com, and if email, drop me, I'm more than happy to respond to emails at stuart@thestuartharris.com, and you'll certainly be able to track me down, and I'll get back to you pretty quickly. It's engagement.
Thank you. Okay.
And do you want to see my mug?
I've no problem with seeing your mug at all. I haven't prepared a mug of my own at this end. So what, I I had another question, but before a wrap up question, it's gone out of my head. Oh yeah.
Don't confuse me with the other one. That's EW something.